evening, folks. I'm Erin DeWeese.
And I'm Ryan Osborne. And we start tonight with an exclusive look into Pittsburg State University as outrage breaks out over the new tailgating policies.
On Tuesday, September 29th, students at PSU received a bulk email from the Vice President of Campus Life, Steve Irwin, in regards to the new tailgating policies. Highlights from the new policies are as followed.
Possession and consumption of alcohol is not permitted until 4 hours prior to kickoff. No alcohol may be consumed beyond 30 minutes prior to scheduled kickoff. Parking spaces may not be reserved or saved for others. Participants may not sit or stand in beds of trucks, and pets may not be allowed in the tailgate area.
Shortly after the release of the new policies, many people turned to social media to share their feelings towards these new guidelines.
As the social media coordinator for Pittsburg State University, Brett Dalton dealt with this firsthand as his phone began to blow up with responses.
Our very own James Spieth was able to sit down with Brett to get some of those responses and his take on the situation.
My title is Coordinator of Web Content and Social Media. My primary duty is to manage the university's main social media accounts, which at this point are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a little bit of Snapchat.
After the bulletin went out about the new tailgating policies, how fast did students react to that online?
We were actually very impressed with the instant reaction because the thought on campus that students don't read bulkies. But as soon as Dr. Irwin sent that out, it was minutes before we started seeing the initial reaction. And when you get it so early like that, you know there's going to be a lot, and they weren't positive.
Right. Yeah. And you also posted that on Facebook as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And what were some of the reactions from Facebook?
Facebook's a little different beast than Twitter because Twitter is mostly younger people, current students, prospective students, younger alumni. Facebook, you're getting into moms and dads, even grandparents, a much wider age range. So the Facebook reaction was more mixed. I mean, we had some negative feedback. People concerned we were going to kill the fun atmosphere and the tradition. But then we had the people also commenting, sort of arguing with each other about, it's not that big of a deal. You're still going to have a lot of time to tailgate and have some fun.
So, so mainly you just saw the positive was towards like the parents and the grandparents, and the negative was the students.
Yes, for the most part. I mean, there were some students, I should say, that were positive and were pointing out that, look, some of them seemed to know exactly what happened that led to the changes. Because we did have some incidents in the first couple weeks of football. And so some of them understood that, and I don't know if they'd witnessed it or whatever, but we had some students who were positive and still trying to encourage people to go and have fun. But a lot of I'd say most of the negative reaction was from students because, that's a big deal in the fall.
What were some of the more dramatic responses that you saw on social media?
Obviously, students like to have a little fun with their anger, and if we've had one who photoshopped a picture of Hitler into a Pitt State photo to make a point. A lot that were genuinely upset and saying that we're going to kill the tradition, we're going to kill the atmosphere at football games, Pitt State's tailgating becoming a daycare, those kind of things. So it was a lot of anger, and as you guys know on Twitter and social media, everything is so instant. As soon as you feel something, you pick up your phone and tweet it. And then once you see a lot of other people tweeting it, then you feel even more safe, I guess, or you feel that encouragement to go along with them and let Pitt State know what you think. And we love that. We encourage it. Even when it's negative, we need to know what people are saying, and they're not shy about telling us.
Were there any common hashtags that were being used on Twitter? Or?
So the one I've seen the most is Make Pitt Great Again, which I think is a play off Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. And it's kind of a problem I have with politicians who say Make America Great Again, is this assumption that Pitt State is not currently great. Or, I understand there was some disappointment. The idea that the tailgating policy, which may have had an effect on the football atmosphere, was an indication or a representation of how things are on campus overall. It's a little tricky because you think about all the buildings we've built and some of the people we're bringing to campus and all the additions that Dr. Scott has led and enhancements here. It's kind of tough.
How long did that viral outrage last? I mean, obviously it's for a few days afterwards, after the announcement, but...
Yeah, it's really it's lasted the entirety of the football season, truthfully. The initial outrage and the initial complaining or criticism that we saw was most of that day until about 4 or 5, when I guess classes are out and people are busy doing other things. But it never really stopped. I mean, every Saturday of a home game, we would see tweets, pictures from the parking lot, and people saying we're not going to the game because of the policy. And so even up until this past Saturday, we saw many tweets just this past week about how empty the parking lot was, which is kind of tough to discern the reasoning. I mean, the football team wasn't as dominant as usual, so that can have an effect. But it's maintained really since that initial email.
Has anything like this ever happened in the past?
Not since I've been here. This is my 3rd year in this position, and I can't think of a time when we got so much. This was the first time we had done something, set forth a policy that received such widespread negative feedback. It was a learning experience for me on the other side of the tweets to figure out how to manage it all.
And how did the university respond to all of this?
Well, in terms of my position, and I guess I'm sort of the public online voice for the university through social media, there's very little we can do because obviously the only thing that was going to make most people feel a lot better about the policy was changing it back, which obviously wasn't going to happen. And so this is actually one of those occasions where it's probably best not to say anything, at least in the immediate, while the anger is so hot, because nothing you could say would really make people feel better about it. And so to this point, publicly, I know we haven't said much, but there has been a lot of talk internally of how we're going to handle this going forward, because we do hear the criticism, we do understand why people are upset, and we don't want that to continue. So I know there are conversations internally that are happening a lot about what to do going forward.
And do you have any other comments you'd like to make? Any thoughts or views on this topic?
I think I would just reiterate that we do hear and see the complaints. I think there's a sense, because maybe we haven't said something publicly as a university, that we're ignoring the criticism or ignoring people's concerns. And I know for a fact that it's not true. I mean, I have a folder on my desktop that's just filled with screenshots of tweets, and it's not so we can have them and make fun of some of the jokes or whatever, but it's to have a log of this is what people are saying about this. I did the same thing with Bill Clinton. I mean, he got a lot of, the announcement that he was coming got a lot of positive and negative feedback, so we saved those because we want to know what people are saying. And so when we look and formulate a plan to move forward, we can say, well, I can tell you what people are saying. This is, here's 50 examples. And so, I don't know who you're going to talk to or who will see this, but the university is very aware of the concern and the criticism around this topic. And while we haven't said something publicly, there are conversations every day about how to handle it moving forward. Not that's just best for us, but best for our students and the alumni and everyone who comes to the games, because football is a huge deal here, and the football environment is a huge deal, and we've bragged about it for many years, and we want that atmosphere to continue. But we also need it to be a place that is safe and family friendly, because we have a lot of 21-year-old students there who want to have a good time, but we also have a lot of 5-year-olds who are there who are trying to walk around with mom and dad and enjoy the experience too. So it's a kind of a tightrope to, when you have such a wide range of an audience, to make that 5-hour, 6-hour event out there on Saturdays as safe and as fun as can be.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you, James and Brett. Definitely some interesting takes from the lovely people on the internet.
Oh yeah, and not only has it created that social media outrage, but it also has left a significant impact on the game day atmosphere itself.
The newsroom was able to gather footage of recent tailgates, and the first video you see here is that of the 2014 football season before the new policies were implemented, and as you can see, the parking lot is completely filled.
In this second video taken, after the release of the new policies, it is quite the opposite, as many people have decided to stay home instead of participating in one of the known Pittsburgh tradition of Gorilla Game Day.
A very obvious change between before and after the new policies were implemented.
Police presence has always been evident on game day, but along with these recent changes came an increase in law enforcement presence to ensure the new policies were maintained.
To get a better look at game day from the perspective
I'm Lincoln Long, and we are interrupting this broadcast with breaking news from an insider with the Pitt State Police Department. For privacy purposes, they have asked to keep their identity disclosed and has asked to not be recorded, but has given us permission to share those opinions on the subject. We asked, how many years have you been employed with Pittsburgh State Campus Police Department? They answered, I have been employed for about 8 years now at the campus police, but have worked as an officer of the law for nearly 25 years. When asked if the officer has been involved in events like this through any time during his career, I wouldn't even describe these things as events. I think it is our department and the school taking necessary actions to ensure that our school remains and contains a family-oriented atmosphere when it comes to the athletic events. Then we asked, given the events, do you feel as if these changes are beneficial and help keep students engaged in the actual game taking place? I think the uproar coming from this whole mess was inevitable. However, I think the school's decision to make changes and to make the proper safety precautions were as well inevitable. The students see Pitt State football as a literal jungle where they are free to roam wild and get as drunk as they want to without any regards to the fact that half of them are breaking the law, being underage and drinking. They believe that football is the free pass they get to not have to follow the set laws in the state of Kansas. The next question was, before the new policies, did you witness any outrageous student behavior or during tailgate? He then responded with, what students need to understand is how many times we as officers of the law have let them get a free pass. If we handed out tickets to every single underage student running around during a football game, we wouldn't even be able to keep up in our offices. I have seen students who have drank too much and are literally throwing up in front of some of my colleagues, and still we help with what we can and let them be on their way. We then finished the interview by asking, do you feel as if the new changes in policies are fair or overstretched? He wrapped it up by saying, I think a little bit of both. I think students shouldn't think of Pitt State football and immediately think of getting drunk. However, I do think the slam it is taking away of the essence the school radiated during a football game. But for the most part, I think the students need to learn to rely on the actual sport and not the alcohol itself in order to make the day event a good time. I'm Lakin Long, and this has been an exclusive breaking news report. Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
To have affected more than just the students.
Speaking of, earlier I was able to talk with former PSU student and alumni Austin Osborne via FaceTime, and his thoughts on Gorilla Game Day overall before and after the policies were put into place. We have Austin Osborne here, a former PSU student and alumni. So Austin, when did you graduate from Pittsburgh State University?
May 2013.
Okay, and what kind of things were you involved in as a PSU student?
See, I was involved with student government. I was a student body vice president for a year. I was also with organizations like Student Ambassadors and the Crimson Club, and then I was also Greek while I was at Pitt.
Okay. Was attending Pitt State football games and participating in game day activities something most students did while you were a student here?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was a staple of most students' time, especially during the fall. I think if there was a game day on a Saturday in the fall, that was what I was doing, going to the tailgate and going to the football game.
Okay, cool. And as an alumni, are you aware of the new policies for the tailgates and the game days?
Yeah, I've been to 2 games this season, and I was also made aware of the new policies via the press releases and the social media releases of the policy.
Okay, so describe the game day atmosphere while you attended Pitt State and then after the new policies.
I mean, I think when I was at the fun environment, there was a lot of university spirit and a lot of involvement as well. You know, it was a place where people could go and they could bring, so there was a really good experience for students, and I think it created a really fun environment for our players and our team to be a part of on game day. After the policy, I definitely seen a decrease in attendance of the tailgates and the games, and definitely a little bit less of a community feels like. I think people are a little bit on edge and tense of increased police presence and some of the new policies that they're having to follow.
Did you see any problems at the games that you did attend as a student here?
I mean, I didn't see anything that was, I would say, out of the ordinary for a football game. I mean, I think that any time that you allow alcohol to be introduced to an environment, whether that be a game or a party or a social event or whatever, there's always going to be possibility for some issues. But I didn't see anything that was beyond what I would call normal for most of those types of atmospheres. I mean, if you go to a pro game or you go to other college games, I thought that there was nothing going on at Pitt State that was worse than those other places. So.
Okay. How do you think the new policies have affected the overall thoughts of students, alumni, and the community about Pitt State football and the game day tailgating?
I mean, I definitely think it's made some people less excited about going to tailgating or going to the football game. I think alumni are a little bit upset because they feel like the policy was really directed towards the students, but that it's being enforced upon everyone, and it's causing alumni who have tailgates that they've done for years aren't able to do them the way they've been doing them for decades. And then as far as the community goes, I think that the community doesn't like to come out as much because of the increased politics. I think they feel intimidated and a little bit. I think they feel it's unjustified, and I'm sure it is the same way for students. I mean, I'm sure students are, not as inclined to go to games. I definitely think it's caused a decrease in attendance as well for the football games, not just the tailgates.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts, Austin. Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. Now, Pittsburgh State University has put these new policies into place for the safety and well-being of game day participants and to ensure that fans and visitors experience the very best.
Well, it seems to me that the changes in the policies have had a larger impact than expected. In fact, harms such as binge drinking and driving under the influence might become a further problem in the future.
Yes, and after getting an exclusive look farther into the problem, we have discovered not only a dilemma with the students, but a sense of overall bad moral between the university and community.
This is hard not to notice, as game day and tailgating attendance at Carney Smith Stadium has significantly decreased.
Now, students, alumni, parents, and the community are worried that the tradition of Pitt State Gorilla football will not be able to survive after the implement of these new policies.
So the real question of the night is, will these policies remain? Will the impact of the policies on game days spark a change?
Or will the policies remain to ensure a safe environment for game day participants?
I guess only time will tell.
That's right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight for our exclusive look on the new Pitt State tailgating policies. I'm Erin DeWeese.
And I'm Ryan Osborne. Thank you and good night.